in this video we will be seeing a comparison between comparison and look the similarities between the Azure Virtual Machines, Azure Container Instance and Azure Functions. So each of this separately we have discussed in my previous videos, which you can have a look so that you have detailed informations on how to create all these three functions in the Azure. So we will see a comparison of all these three, because in general when you look at first time all these three will look very similar, like used for same functions, but what could be the differences? So each has their own advantages and strength. So let us see the comparison between other three. So first here, Azure Virtual Machines. So best for scenarios like we need full control over the operating system and environment, such as custom applications. You want to run a custom application and legacy systems. Then Azure Container Instances is ideal for running isolated containers without managing the underlying infrastructure, suitable for burst workloads and task automations. Then Azure Functions, so perfect for event-driven applications and microservices, offering automatic scaling and serverless experiences. Okay, so Azure Virtual Machine. So generally who will be dealing or acting with this is system administrators and developers. So like use cases will be deploying custom application, then managing the OS and infrastructure, scale manually and automatically. This has both the options. So to know what is about scaling, because we have been talking scaling at every point, because it's one of the important function in Azure. So scaling also we have explained in our previous video how the scaling is, what is the manual and what is the automatic. You can refer back to the video. Then Azure Container Instances. So here usually the DevOps engineers and developers will be the one who acting with this. So use cases will be run isolated containers, automate tasks and scale containers. Then Azure Functions, so developers event sources like HTTP requests, timers and all these things will be using this Azure Functions. So use cases like execute event driven code, handle background process, scale automatically. So here it's both manual and automatic scaling. Here scale containers, then here it is automatic scaling. You can see here execute event driven code, meaning based on some event occurring it will execute the code. So based on the request it runs the code. So all these things backend process is all mostly we go for Azure Functions. We will see a table comparing these three. So for the purpose, full control over OS environment. If this is your purpose, then you should go for Azure Virtual Machine. Run containers without managing VMs. You don't want to manage VM, but you want to run containers, then Azure Container is the best option. Serverless compute for event-driven applications. You want to run a serverless compute for event-driven related applications, then Azure Functions is your best choice. For use cases like custom application, legacy apps and complex setups, because we will have full control, so we can do any kind of customization. So we go for Azure Virtual Machine. Burst workloads, task automation, isolated containers. You want to set isolated containers, you want to automate a task, or you have like burst workloads, then container is the best option. Event driven tasks, microservices and background process, Azure Functions again. So in the management request, managing OS updates and patch, you will be managing everything as you have the full control over the OS and that environment. So no VM management is involved, just focusing on containerized apps only. So in Azure Functions, no infrastructure management, just focus on the code that's going to be run or going to be triggered by some event. Scalability, as we see in previous slide, manual and automation here manual scaling, limited auto scaling, that's Azure scaling container. Then here automatic scaling based on the demand. So here it's fully automated based on the demand or based on traffic. Startup time will be minutes for VM, then seconds for containers, and milliseconds for Azure Functions. In case of cost, pay for VM uptime. So once your VM is up running, you will have to pay for the time it's running. Then for container case, pay per second for container runtime. The same like the VM, it's the runtime of the container you will have to pay. And for the Azure Functions, pay per execution and resource consumption only. Because in the Azure function, the previous video for Azure function, you can, if you look at that, you will understand that Azure functions will only be active when it's required or when it's being triggered. If it is not triggered, it will go automatically to deallocated state. So only during the execution or resource consumption you will have to pay. Complexity is high because of high management and all setup is all on us, so it is high management. This is medium level, and the Azure Functions is low level managed complexity. Then integrated with all Azure services. Containers integrated with Azure services, supports Kubernetes. So we have explained in the container video. Integrates with Azure services, supports various triggers. Security, full control over security settings, hypervisor level isolation managed by Azure, focus on app level security. So the rest of the things is managed by Azure, so just we have to focus on the app level security only. The thing which we are going to trigger or the application, just focus on that will do. So this is a comparison between those three, so I think you'll have a clear vision on those three, Azure VM, then container, and Azure Functions. So based on that, you can choose which you would like to use it. As we have mentioned before, you can have a free account in Microsoft Azure, then you can do some practices so that you get more familiarized with creating, deleting, or doing functions. You will get more familiarized with that.